Start? Yep, great. Okay. We are Hinduism today, and this one comes a little bit closer to home for us. Geographically, in that India is so close to us as a nation, and in terms of our population in Australia, whereas many of us don't know many Jewish people, maybe know one or two Muslims, we probably all know Hindu people in our lives. There's a large Hindu population in Perth. And so in that sense, reminding us of what our foundations for this course is, it's about having enough understanding about somebody else's religion that we can start a conversation with them. And it's about mission, it's about prayer. We are, as we're doing this, and as Kay set up for us at the beginning, expecting diversity as we come. So it's not just that we assume every Hindu is going to be like this or whatever else it is, but having enough to start a conversation, to be able to hear other people, to love them, to listen to them. And we do that. We've got that framework that we're working through, and the Christian one is at the beginning of it. And we are comparing, to some extent, this with Christianity as we go. So just a reminder, you can flick back through the Christianity stuff as you go. One of my students said to me once, she's from a Christian family, and she said, I'm really uncomfortable with you talking about these other religions and other gods all the time. We do a term of it, so it's not all the time. But that you're talking about other gods, you're talking about other religions, and shouldn't we just be talking about Christianity? And to that, I didn't just answer this, we talk these things through. But we're confident with Christianity that it stands up against the alternatives. And as we do this, we're trying to come at it not from a position of superiority and judging, just trying to understand. But at the same time, we do see the things in there that become kind of glaringly obvious that are perhaps lacking, that Christianity fills. And that's what we're hoping, that as we go through our discussions, we will find that common ground and those areas for prayer and those points of connection where we can actually speak into someone's life with the hope and the grace and the faith that we have, understanding them a little bit better and how we can connect with them. All right. We do have a very different video today from the other weeks. You won't get very much in your notes, I think, for things like history and scriptures and so on, but you might get some as you go. Perhaps there might be some things from the beliefs section as we go as well. This is from a series, this guy called Zach Anna, who does a series going and exploring some different world religions. He does have cerebral palsy and in a wheelchair, and does come across a little bit different but for that sense, and also talks about drinking beer with a college crew right at the beginning. But I do love it for this, the juxtaposition we get of seeing a guy with cerebral palsy talking to Hindus about karma. And I think just for that by itself, the video is worth it. And then I'll unpack the rest of the things on our handouts afterwards. So 11 minutes worth, sit back and enjoy.
Hey, we're here at USC, and you're probably wondering why I'm back at college. Is it because I'm 29 and still don't have a degree? No! It's because we're meeting Pavitra today, who is, pre-med, she plays the piano, she sings, she dances, she's a screenwriter, a journalist, and probably an astronaut. But she is also a Hindu. So we're going to learn about Hinduism and see if I can get some good karma with the college crowd. I should have brought beer. Nice to meet you, I'm Zach.
Nice to meet you too.
Were you studying all day, or what? Is it finals time? What's going on now?
I had a couple presentations.
A couple presentations?
Some were more fun than others, but...
Thanks for finding the time. I guess let's go learn about Hinduism and everything that you do.
Oh, okay.
What year of college are you in right now?
I'm actually wrapping up my undergraduate and my graduate degrees. I was a progressive degree student, so in a week or 2 weeks, I'll be walking and receiving both my bachelor's in psychology and my master's in global medicine.
How did you manage to get 2 degrees so early?
Lots of classes.
What was your spiritual life like growing up? What were the values your parents taught you?
Two of the biggest values my parents taught me are two of the most central ones in Hinduism, karma and dharma. Karma is basically what you put into the universe will come back to you. It's very much a personal connection with the universe.
What's dharma? Is it like that Dharma and Greg show? Because I was not a fan of that.
Dharma is really a person's calling in life, or their duty is really what dharma refers to in a lot of ways.
How does one practice Hinduism, and how do you worship? And what do you worship?
Well, I mean, I like to say there are as many different ways of practicing Hinduism as there are Hindus in the world. The way I practice Hinduism is very different from the way my friends practice Hinduism, which is different from the way my parents practice Hinduism.
Let's just focus on you and your parents. How do you practice Hinduism differently than your parents did?
Well, I grew up here. Since culture is such a big part of Hinduism, since it's such a personal religion, I think that really influences the way in which I see the world. I see karma and dharma as the most important things as opposed to all the stories, but I also really, really, really enjoy the stories about Hinduism.
One of the things that I've always been unclear on is what is actually cultural in Indian culture versus what is Hindu culture.
It's hard to take this spiritual entity that's been growing alongside culture in India. Hinduism is one of the oldest religions in the world, and box it up into this thing that we like to call religion. There's no one person that we know of that founded Hinduism. We can't trace it back. It wasn't even called Hinduism for the longest time. Hindu is actually a Persian word which was used to denote people of India, and so Indianism and Hinduism have been so intricately put together that I can't tell you exactly where the line is. I can tell you that parts of my Indian heritage definitely contribute to the way I practice Hinduism.
Are there rituals and things like that you practice?
Yes, we have artis and pujas, which are kind of offerings to the gods. The gods are, I can tell you a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I don't know. How many gods are there?
So there are millions and millions of gods in my understanding, but they're all manifestations of what we, at least in my understanding of Hinduism, they're all manifestations of Brahman, which is kind of a universal spirit. I don't know if I would put the word God onto that because it has no form, it has no shape. There's a bit of Brahman in every single one of us, according to Hinduism.
Can we talk about your particular sect of Hinduism and how it differs from others?
So the sect of Hinduism that I'm most familiar with is Shaivism, which is basically the worship of the Lord Shiva, who is the god of destruction.
Why would you worship the destroyer?
Because destruction is a normal part of life. Things come to being, things die out.
How do you worship him? Like, do you break a lot of things? Like throwing dishes and stuff, or is it?
No, it's not so
Probably
much
not.
destroying ourselves. It's just asking for safety and a clear path ahead. And we have symbols like in my own cultural beliefs, believe that the bindi, or the dot on the forehead, as many people would call it, is a symbol of Shiva's third eye, or the eye of destruction, the eye of power.
Why do people wear the bindi, and why don't you have one?
I do have one. It's in my purse, which is in
Oh!
I'll be wearing it to the arti, which is happening right after this.
Is that what we're going to? Where are we going to next?
We're going to an arti, which is kind of an offering to the gods, or to a god. In our case, we use Ganesha, because Ganesha is the destroyer of obstacles, and he's a very universal symbol of Hinduism. He's the elephant-headed god. And so we'll be basically offering our prayers to him and asking for his blessings, in the sense that we really want to have a clear path ahead.
What is the actual groups that we're meeting with?
This group is called the Hindu Student Organization, and it is the first and the primary Hindu group on USC's campus. And so we're very non-denominational. We don't, really harp on sect. I don't think you can much when you're Hindu, simply because of so many different ways of practice. But we get together every week and we do some discussion and an arti, or an offering, just to get together and have a space to express our spirituality. And so that's really our role.
Can anybody come?
It doesn't matter what religious background you're from. In Hinduism, there are many paths, one truth, and the way you find it, it's up to you.
For us, the light is the main source of everything. Like light is God. But then the idea is that we light a lamp with the wick and oil. So the oil is considered is the one which helps the light to grow, you know. But the idea is that the reason why we create the lamp with the wick is because you can transfer it. So it kind of symbolizes that if I share what I know to someone, I'm enlightening the other person, so we are transferring the light.
So I'm getting some of the wick tonight.
Exactly. You are getting the light.
So typically we'll go into some sort of discussion after this, whether it's something that one of us read in a newspaper that we think relates to religion or spirituality or Hinduism specifically. But I think today, since we have you here, if there's any questions that you have, or if you want to talk more about your interest in religion, or...
One of the things that I had a deep question about was the idea of karma. You know, there are a lot of people who are not in a good place, and if I was looking at them thinking, oh, in the last life they must have done something to deserve that, I don't know how that would affect things like compassion and empathy, and if it does.
The entire idea behind this philosophy is that we still do as much good as possible, but then how much they get is based on their karma.
When they're born, the way I see it is that they're born with a clean slate, but what happened before determines how they're born. I can see how that could be a problem in the sense that somebody looks and says, oh, you did bad things in your last life, that's why you were born this way. It makes more sense to help that person because it's not about what they did in their last life, it's about who they are in this life.
Was everyone in this group raised in a religious household, or do you question your religion ever, or how do you deal with that?
I was raised in a pretty Hindu household, however I went to Catholic high school, and the city that I was raised in was predominantly Muslim. I questioned the whole idea of karma and why some people are born less fortunate than others and what the implications of that in their current life.
How is it to be a Hindu in America versus a Hindu in India, and what have you noticed that's different about the cultures and how they view faith?
Only when you are away from something, you actually realize the value of it. So when I was in India, like I used to explore very little of Hinduism, and a lot of stuff I learned was after I came here. Like in India, like say I go to a temple on a regular basis, right? No one would actually ask me what does that means, you know? So when someone asks me what it means, now I have to explain to them what it is. And as you get a flow of questions from different people about your faith, you end up researching a lot more to actually understand what you are actually doing.
Like, you don't have to answer if you don't want
Sure.
But, like, where do you stand in terms of just, like, core beliefs, whether it's agnostic or spiritual, or...
That's a really good question. I think right now where I stand in terms of belief is that it's my job to try and communicate views of other people so that it makes those beliefs of others more accessible. Because to me, religion is something that is too often in our society used to discriminate or separate when it should be something that is meant to unify and start a discussion. So hopefully I can be a catalyst to start that discussion.
I think not many people go as far as you are and like care enough to really address topics like this.
You guys have been so wonderful. It's been really a great evening to get all those different perspectives, and I really appreciate it.
Having you here too.
Yeah.
It was awesome. So what finals does everybody have? Anybody got a...
All right. Yeah, a bit different. I do find it fascinating to have him ask about karma, and for them to be able to look him in the eye and go, yep, someone's place in this life is, based on what they did in their last life, but will still be nice to you. It's a hard one, clearly, to think about. Okay, so in terms of history, like she said in there, it is intricately connected to India. The word Hindu is related to the word India in Persian, and so it's like the religion of India, but yet it is so varied. There are something like 300 million different gods. There are, within Hinduism, there is the idea that Hinduism is monotheistic, so that there is only one god, or that, and some of them will say that it's monotheistic, some of them will say it's polytheistic because there's the 300 million gods, but they're all part of one god. And the way they worship their gods then are very, very, very different. And so what I can give you today is like I was saying, broad brushstrokes. If you're interested in finding out more, though, please do read, listen, learn, talk to other people as well. Okay. Unlike other religions, Hinduism doesn't have it doesn't have a single founder. It doesn't have a single scripture that it's based on. There's no commonly agreed set of teachings. The closest you could get to a scripture is what they would call the Vedas, Vedas, which is for ancient documents that governed Indian society and ethics and morality. But it's not, they wouldn't hold them in the same way that most other religions would hold their scriptures. They don't have the same level of authority at all. In terms of practices and community then, because it's so varied, the way they worship, the way they practice is very, very different. Like Nicholas mentioned, we haven't looked at food very much. Many Hindus are vegetarian because they're considering we're all part of the same spiritual source from Brahman. They would worship in temples, but then the god that they worship or the gods they worship would be very different. They do often treat the statues, as though they are a part of the god. So it's not like it's just a statue. So they could bathe the statue or feed it or, wake it up in the morning and things like that in some of the temples and some of the priests and rituals. So very, very varied when it comes to practices and community. It's both a religion and it's a philosophy or a way of life. And intricately connected to Indian culture as well. So it's one of these ones that's really hard to separate from culture and from place, which Hindu people then who do leave India to the many parts of the world then have to work out what Hinduism looks like for them in the different places when it's not actually in India. So in terms of our beliefs and our big main questions. So the nature of God, you've got Brahman, who's considered the supreme spirit or God, and everything comes from Brahman, so it's the source of everything. But for those who would say Brahman is a god, some don't, like the girl there was saying, that Brahman wouldn't be a god who interferes in human life. So it's a spiritual entity that's out there, basically. So if you were to pray to Brahman, you're just recognising and respecting Brahman. You're not praying to ask for anything because you're not going to get anything. It's not an interactive kind of god. But then there are the Vedic gods, the gods of the stories of the Vedas, who represent aspects of the nature of Brahman. So you have then a bunch of different gods who might be showing us some of the character of Brahman, and there are stories there, many stories of these kind of gods coming and doing things on the earth in their avatar form, their human or their animal or human form. So those gods, the Vedic gods, then are limited in power. they don't control each other, and they're also subject to the force that they believe is underlying the whole world, which is this force of karma. So the gods can receive punishment and so on as well. So you can probably see why then people are like, some people go, it's kind of no God, because the gods aren't gods. They're not real gods. And some of them will go, yep, there is one God, and some of them go, no, they are gods. They're many gods. It's just a bit complex. Which, if you meet a Hindu person and want to chat to them, this is, starting place for finding out what they believe is maybe, what do you think God is like, or, which of the stories or which of the gods do you follow? So there are three main Vedic gods. They actually call them the Trinity. In one of the things I came across, the Trinity. So there's Brahma, which is not Brahman, who would be the creator, Vishnu, who's the sustainer, and Shiva, who we heard about, who's the destroyer. And they're the three main ones, and so many of the sects then would be following. Interestingly, one of two of them, but not Brahma. Out of them, the creator isn't really the one that's worshipped at all, but Vishnu or Shiva. So if we're going to look at our big 5 questions that all religions and worldviews are searching to answer, well, where are we? What's the truth about the world that we're living in? We're actually part of this world that's made or is Brahman. Everything's part of it. The gods are part of it. Nature's part of it. Humans are part of it. And it's a world of karma. Now, when we talk about karma in Hinduism, it's both different from what we hear it used in the world, and it's different from what we're going to hear next week in Buddhism. So the idea of karma isn't you were just mean to someone and then you tripped over and that was karma getting you. Karma is bigger than that in Hinduism, in that it's who you are when you are born. And you think India, caste system, the part of the world that or the part of the society that you're born into then is a result of your karma from your previous life. It isn't so immediate as the way it gets used in the world. And I'll tell you the difference with Buddhism next week when we get there. But it is a world of karma. Humans are eternal beings, and again, this is different to Buddhism. Buddhism has come from Hinduism, but when we get to this next week, you're going to see it's similar but different. So humans are eternal beings who wear a body, but ultimately humans are all part of Brahman and are born into that social class or that caste system, which you might know of if you're familiar with Indian culture. So then what's the problem with the world? It is that you're stuck in this cycle of karma and dharma. So dharma is what you do in your life with who you are called to be based on where you were born. So based on the caste, the caste you're born into, or the position in life you're born into, whatever it is, based on that you have a certain duty and obligation to live a certain way. If you do that, you can get better karma for the next life. If you don't do that, you get worse karma for the next life. But either way, you are stuck in this cycle of birth, life, death, rebirth, and it just keeps going. It goes over and over again. And so in that you can, try to worship the gods correctly and be purified and all that kind of thing, but you are stuck in this cycle. The cycle is called samsara. So what's the solution then according to Hinduism? Well, you can get better karma to free you from that cycle of reincarnation. So to do that, you do your dharma. So you do your duty, you do your good works, you do your obligation, you do your worship, you read the scriptures, follow the examples. You could get a guru and follow the teachings. Again, gurus don't have the same kind of authority, though, that we'd think of in most of the major religions as we're looking at them. And so then what happens when we die? According to Hinduism, your karma determines who you come back as, but the ultimate goal is to be released from this cycle of birth, life, death and rebirth by getting good enough karma that eventually you can escape the cycle and you reach nirvana, which is nothingness. So it isn't like a heaven or a hell. It's absence of being part of this cycle anymore, basically. And that's called moksha. This is the picture we use at school. If you want to come up with a different image, that'd be great. But this is what we do. We just draw this circle over and over and over and over again. That's your karma and your dharma. But if you are, if you're good enough, you eventually can escape, and you get moksha. You escape the cycle of samsara, and you're released into nirvana. And so that's like the ultimate hope of Hinduism is escape from life and into nothingness. Now I've got to tell you, if you meet Hindu people, some of you would have family, friends, all the rest of it. We find them at school the hardest people to give the gospel to, because they are so open to everything. And so I'll get a student who's really engaged, like, with the stuff I'm saying about Jesus, and I'll get really excited, and I'm like, this kid's like really open. And then we'll dig a bit deeper and realise, actually, because they're Hindu, they've already got such a wide variety of somewhat conflicting beliefs that they can just slot another one in there. They've got 300 million gods. Jesus, there's another one. And so they are so open, and you can have wonderful conversations with them. But there's the difficulty when we do have those conversations, is that in this kind of worldview, it's just easy to put Jesus in as another god. And yeah, they are so accepting of a wide range of beliefs that actually we find them harder to share Jesus with in a meaningful way that's going to change their lives. That's my experience. If you've got different experiences, it'd be great to hear them when you're in your groups as well. So that, which is pretty much what we're going into. I'm trying to think if I've forgotten anything important. But thinking about what surprises us about Hinduism, you might want to come up with a better image than mine. I'd love to hear it. If you come up with a good slogan, some of the slogans over the last few weeks have been really good. I get to hear at least the ones in the leaders' meetings on Wednesday when we do this in advance. Alia came up with, for Judaism, Explora the Torah. For all the Dora the Explorer fans, you'll get it. But anyway, she's never going to forget Judaism. Oh yeah, no. So if you come up with something like that, just is a helpful way to remember it. Thinking about what's our common ground, where are the points of connection, and especially if you're going to meet a Hindu person, you probably are living next door to one, or at your park, whatever it is. Where can we find points of connection, particularly for the gospel as well? And then how, in particular, can we pray for Hindus we know in our community and in the world? So it's 11:20. Let's go. Yeah, so we can pretty much spend the next 20, what is it, 20, oh, maths. 25 minutes in groups, but make sure that last 10 minutes of it at least is moving on to question 5 and then actually praying as a group. Cool, let's go.